Thanks, Patrick. Thank you, guys. And thank you for having us on, Patrick. So we're presenting today on Power Automate Desktop. I just want to be sure that you can see my screen okay. Excellent. Okay, so thank you. So Power Automate Desktop. So I think we've got 50 minutes booked for this session. And what we want to do is to give a full overview of Power Automate and where Power Automate has come from and where the automation industry has come from to what it is today. In the presentation as well, what we want to do is to go in deeper into some of the functions and functionality and capability of the product. But likewise, we want to show some customer stories and some use cases of where automation has been a help to many businesses today. And likewise, at the end, we would welcome any questions. We can keep some time for questions if people want to pose questions along the way. And before that, we want to go into a quick demo just to showcase the RPA element, where we can see an attended automation of RPA on a desktop, where it's web scraping some data from a website and dumping that data into Excel, which is a very applicable piece of work that should be helpful to most of us in our day job. So just to begin, and Amelie spoke this morning about the 4 different waves and the challenges that businesses face on a global level. So just to briefly recap on those, the 4 waves, firstly, the changing workforce. And the changing workforce, and we think about it, that the workforce, and we look at some facts here from the US Bureau of Labor, that 75% of the workforce will be millennials by 2025. So that's bringing about a huge change in terms of how employees work, but also the demands that creates on IT and organization as well. The second wave being the surging digital demand. So we're looking at the changing nature of IT landscapes within business. So we see here again that 500 million more apps will be created in the next 5 years than in the last 40 years. And over 85% of organizations struggle to analyze unstructured data. The third element that Amelie covered was the shortage of developers. So we see that in America alone, in the US alone, there's a 1 million developer shortfall. So with that, obviously creates huge demand, both on the development teams in organizations, but likewise for organizations to find more developers, of which there aren't enough. And the final element being what's happened to us around us in the past year with the great lockdown, that shift in organizations where organizations had their teams working together in the office, but now we are in a landscape where over 42% of employees are working from home. So with that brings a lot of challenges. And if we look at it down to our day-to-day job, and we've looked at it specifically and how this affects us and the different challenges that we have individually within organizations. We think about time being wasted on repetitive tasks. We think about the risk of human error when conducting these tasks. Naturally, employees are prone to fatigue, they're prone to boredom, and with that comes error, and with that comes a reduction in the quality of work. Finally, we think about the difficulty of bridging old and modern systems with or without APIs and the challenges that causes for organizations. And likewise with that, accessibility issues with high code platforms. And finally, we think about the costs incurred in completing repetitive tasks, both the cost financially of employing employees to spend time on work that are not necessarily employed to do, cost of time and cost of money in doing so to organizations. And finally, the difficulty of managing workflows while maintaining security and compliance. And one element left out here is around employee satisfaction. So several studies have found that companies with automation and strategies in place tend to have higher employee satisfaction, where employees are spending time on work that they enjoy doing, higher creative work and higher level thinking work that they enjoy doing, which in turn then leads to employee retention. and the savings that organizations have by not having to onboard and hire and offboard employees. So with that, with automation, we think of the opportunities for automation within an organization. So we think about this study from McKinsey, which reflects that 60% of all occupations have at least 30% technically automatable activities in their job. So that roughly equates to 1/3 of our working day, which is taken up with activities that technology exists that can automate that work today. And obviously that leads to higher productivity. So with almost half of the work activities globally have now the potential to be automated using this current technology. So huge benefits in terms of what automation can do to solve the problems that businesses face across all verticals, across all industries. These are challenges around time, challenges around quality of work, challenges around financial needs, and here's where automation can be a great help. So just to touch on the market and where automation has come from and where it's headed and where we see it headed into the future. So if we look at automation itself, so automation itself is a massively growing market. If we look back to when this concept of robotic process automation came about in the early 2000s, we look at it really from the point of view of companies moving from desktop automation and now to automation across multiple applications and websites. And with that, this industry of robotic process automation has come about. And as it stands, according to Gartner, this industry of robotic process automation is heading to a place where it's going to be worth roughly 3 billion as a software market by 2024, in a couple of years' time. So massive growth. And if we think about it, what's happened this year as well, that's only speeded up the need for automation in organizations. So this study carried out by HFS Research this year has found that process automation, including RPA, is the second fastest growing technology, just behind cybersecurity, as a response to the global pandemic. And when we think about what has caused this change, again, it's the need for organizations to break down silos, to break down the issues that come with remote working and moving out of office, and to move to a more shared services model, and to be able to transfer and move data across organizations in a more efficient way. And with that has come the need for process automation. And as it stands, it's the second fastest growing technology, just behind cybersecurity, as a response to the pandemic. And with that, it now is as good a time as any for organizations to really look into what automation means for them and to build out automation strategies. So just to look at where the whole industry again has come from to what it means today and what the analysts are talking about. When we talk about automation, what are Gartner, what are Forrester, what are all the leading analysts telling us about what automation means today, and where is automation headed into the future? So automation has come from the concept initially of desktop automation, and that was automation within a single application. And the classic example of that is Excel macros. But with that, people obviously saw the benefit of it, and they wondered, can this really grow out across an organization and become something that we can work collaboratively with? And with that came the concept of robotic process automation, which was first coined as a term in and around 2002. But what robotic process automation is it's automation across multiple applications and web. And with that comes the security and governance requirements that enterprises need. But when we think about automation, we tend to solely think about RPA, given all that's happened and where the leading RPA companies have come from to what they are today. But when we read up and we think and we look more into what the analysts are saying, they talk about intelligent automation, or often known as hyper automation. And what hyper automation or intelligent automation is it's RPA integrated with the cognitive technologies. So what are these cognitive technologies that are included in intelligent automation? Not just RPA, but it's the likes of your chatbots, your predictions or your artificial intelligence, discovery, interactive support, business process management, and digital process automation, which we'll cover as we get into things. But ultimately, when we think about automation, we now think about hyper automation or intelligent automation. And that's not just RPA, but it's RPA integrated with the additional cognitive technologies and the benefits that bring to organizations. So just to touch on some use cases in terms of where this can help us visualize it. And the thing about automation naturally is that it's an agnostic software. It's something that every industry is used for. And if we zone down another level, every department has use for it. But likewise, every job in every department has use for automation. And with that, we've seen a full range of use cases grow out from that, right across use cases from financial services around data management, client requests, and more back-end automations. And back-end automations and financial services tend to be where this industry of RPA has come from. But likewise, now we've seen it spread out and grow out across all industries and verticals, from healthcare to manufacturing to retail and telecom. And we're seeing the development of automation move from back-end processes only to now front-end everyday tasks where employees on the front line are getting full benefit and use from automation. And that includes automation via mobile technology or via chatbot or via collaborative tools, right down to everyday on-the-go tasks that frontline employees have as much as back-end employees have, such as expense processing, as an example. So this slide gives a flavor of some of the more common use cases and scenarios for automation, which should be a help. But likewise, there's plenty more. But again, just to help us visualize where we're seeing automation across multiple industries and verticals. So with that, looking at the Power Platform itself and where does Power Automate sit within the Power Platform, and let's go into a deeper dive in terms of the capabilities and functionalities around Power Automate. So firstly, just to look at the momentum around the Power Platform and Power Automate within that. And again, we talked about it being an agnostic technology, but with that, it has grown right across all the verticals. So if we started retail with the likes of Loblaws, Pepsi, right down to your energy sector with Schlumberger, Total, Chevron, most companies, certainly Fortune 500 companies, do have fully adopted automation strategies in place. And we've seen that grow within the past 20 years with RPA, where it's come from a place of the need of moving from desktop automation to enterprise automation. And with that has come huge momentum and right across many departments in these companies as well. So very much a mixed bag of use cases in these companies. And just to touch on Power Automate itself as a tool. So as it stands today, over 350,000 companies are using Power Automate. And we see some of the numbers below. And we think about the number of API calls in the billions that are launched every day as well. But with that 350,000 come a really strong user community around Power Automate, which is a huge help in terms of employees getting started, looking for support, and seeing video content online and understanding how Power Automate can be a help to them. And again, we've had plenty of cases where Power Automate has changed careers for people in that it's been so easy to use as a no-code tool. So just looking a little bit more in terms of the wider Power Platform and where does Power Automate sit in that? So the Power Platform is essentially made up of 4 no-code applications. And Power Automate is the automation application within the Power Platform. And it sits alongside the business analytics tool in Power BI, the app development tool in Power Apps, and the virtual agents tool in Power Virtual Agents. And these four components or four tools sit on the Microsoft Dataverse, which is essentially a universal data repository with all the security, storage, and governance requirements that enterprises need. But if we think about Power Automate, rather than think of it as an island or think of it in silo, if we think of it alongside these other apps in the Power Platform, that allows us to work with data smoothly in terms of where the data comes from your Dataverse, but likewise how that data is fed out as a user experience to employees or to customers, whether that's via an application with Power Apps or via business analytics of Power BI, or likewise through virtual agents of Power Virtual Agents. So looking specifically then at Power Automate, and Power Automate, of course, as the other three tools in the Power Platform, they also sit on the AI Builder or your data connector population included as well. So zoning in on the Power Automate element, and as we see with Power Automate, we see automation as being not an island. So we talked about the evolution of the industry of automation, where it has come from desktop automation to robotic process automation, and now to this concept of intelligent automation or hyper automation. And that's really where Power Automate differentiates itself as the only vendor, the sole vendor that can truly call itself an intelligent automation platform. So that's to say it has these 5 elements all built into the one tool. So robotic process automation, which we're familiar with, which is your UI automation. But likewise, artificial intelligence coming with that, DPA coming with that, or digital process automation, which is API automation. And we go through that in a little bit more detail in terms of how that looks with Power Automate. Also, business process management being included in the one tool as part of our intelligent automation platform with Power Automate. And likewise, our newest feature of process mining and Process Advisor has come out in preview mode as well, and that's fully included as part of Power Automate also. So going into a little bit more detail on all these elements, and we look at firstly at robotic process automation. And robotic process automation essentially comes in 2 types. The industry has developed away from just unattended back-end automation to also attended automation, which is human-initiated automation. And what attended automation allows us to do, it allows employees to get involved with the automations that they work with on a day-to-day basis and have interaction with those processes. But likewise, it allows for more flexibility in terms of breaking larger complex processes down into smaller parts as well. And Power Automate has both attended and unattended coming with it. To look at the next element, and that's around artificial intelligence. So when we think of AI, we think of it working with both structured and unstructured data and using pre-built or custom AI models, which give us coverage over a very wide range of use cases. And typically speaking, we look at it in 4 parts. Your documents element around forms processing and receipt processing and your business card reader. Your vision element, which is your object detection and text recognition. Your prediction element. And finally, your language element of category classification, entity extraction, key phrase extraction, language detection, sentiment analysis, and translation. So all these 4 elements come with AI Builder, and hopefully we'll have some time that we can have a quick look at the different elements of AI Builder in the demo later. The next element is regarding your digital process automation, or DPA. And what DPA is it's API automation. So with Power Automate, we've got over 450 connectors built into Power Automate. And what these are first and third party applications which provide seamless connectivity and integration with the services that your organizations use on a day-to-day basis, such as Adobe, Zendesk, Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, to name but a few. So these come fully included, and again, it allows us for the flexibility of automating not through DPA, but automating natively through these integrated applications through API automation. Final element being a new edition of Process Advisor. And with this process mining tool, what it allows us to do is to simply record processes with the recorder. And with that, it creates a rich process map which has collaboration involved. So it allows employees to contribute processes that they believe are fit for automation. And it encourages collaboration and that citizen developer angle where employees feel empowered to really get full use and benefit from the tool. And the final element being your analytics. So with Process Advisor, both come pre-packaged KPIs and analytics, but likewise as it allows us the flexibility to customize metrics and analytics to meet the needs of organizations as well. So with that, to look at the whole flexibility of the Power Platform and Power Automate, and where does that sit? So if we look at from a data source point of view, and we look at the input in terms of where the data comes from, and again, massive flexibility around how that data comes from, and we think of the different needs and different landscapes that organizations have and where their technology sits on, whether that be more modern cloud services and storage, or whether that be some older legacy applications. And likewise, can the information come from, as we talked about, the 450 connectors, which are the applications that your companies are using on a day-to-day basis. And we've included some here just to highlight that, the likes of SAP, Zendesk, Box, Salesforce, Marketo, applications that employees are using on an everyday basis. How does that information plug in to Power Automate? And we look at Power Automate, we look across the different elements that make up automation, and not just robotic process automation, but DPA as well, as we talked about, artificial intelligence, and likewise your approvals and your business process management element. And then we think about it on the far end in terms of the user experience. How do we present this data to employees or to customers, and the flexibility that comes with that, whether that be through low code applications or perhaps a more secure web portal, or likewise, can we integrate it to an intelligent chatbot with Power Virtual Agents, which is an exciting possibility, whether that information comes back to employees internally or to customers with chatbot. And likewise, again, there's flexibility in terms of feeding that information through communication tools or collaboration tools or core business applications that organizations may use. So with that, to go into a little bit more detail, end-to-end and a flow in terms of how Power Automate looks at a process through the 4 disciplines we talked about of RPA, DPA, business process management, and artificial intelligence. So rather than looking at this very, very common use case, one of the most popular use cases in automation around invoice processing, rather than look at this use case through one discipline of just RPA or DPA or business process management, Power Automate allows us the flexibility to look at it through the multidisciplinary approach. And with that, we can choose which of these technologies or disciplines are best suited for that step. So if we look up at the top left, the first step, where the sales team receive an email from a client containing a request for proposal with multiple documents. Rather than carry out that process through RPA, Power Automate would look at that and see that DPA may be a better fit. And that being that with RPA, we have to build out that process step by step, but likewise would require maintenance or could potentially break down for something as simple as a password changing or the user interface of the email changing. And with that, the process breaks. So rather than go down the RPA route for this step, Power Automate would look at it through the DPA lens, which is your native integration of that application, whether it be Outlook or Gmail, that sits natively within Power Automate, and it's a much more smoother and much more resilient and robust way to automate. And if we follow the flow right through from the first step where the sales team received the email through your natively integrated application of Gmail or Outlook, right down to the very last step, which is more suited to RPA, as the payment is received and all details are automatically entered into the financial systems. So with RPA, this system may be a legacy application or maybe a mainframe, and with that, RPA may be a better candidate as opposed to DPA, because the application may not sit natively. So looking at this process end to end, it just allows us to visualize how Power Automate would view a process through the multidisciplinary approach of intelligent automation. And there's huge benefits in that. It allows for flexibility in terms of building out the process, but it also allows us for choosing the better option, whether that be DPA, RPA, business process management, or AI. And with that, it reduces the cost significantly in carrying out the process. It speeds up the time in building and carrying out the process, and likewise makes the process more resilient and a lot less likely to break down, which obviously can have massive cost implications as well. And just to explain that in a use case or in a customer story, that being of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, a company that's been around for a couple of 100 years, has a very mixed environment in terms of the applications that they're using as a business and where the data is coming from. And they have a lot of legacy applications as an old manufacturing company. And with that, when RPA first came about, it was a huge godsend for Coca-Cola and a huge savior in time. So Coca-Cola, when they first looked at automation, they identified processes that they wished to automate. And some of these processes couldn't be automated by just RPA alone. So they had to be put aside, and they couldn't be automated at the time. The second thing is that a lot of processes that Coca-Cola identified for automation could successfully be carried out through RPA. But likewise, some of these processes didn't work out so well with RPA and became quite a costly exercise as processes required maintenance or as processes broke down. And with that, Coca-Cola had a mixed set of results with RPA, some huge successes and some quite expensive processes to maintain, and therefore processes that didn't have a very strong return on investment, and therefore had a mixed set of results. With Power Automate, we were able to revisit the processes that couldn't be automated just through RPA alone, and look at those processes through an intelligent automation approach and automate them with a mixture of RPA, DPA, business process management, artificial intelligence. But also, we're able to revisit processes that proved quite expensive with the previous RPA vendor. And in this case, with Coca-Cola, Power Automate was able to automate processes at 10 times less the cost over the previous RPA vendor by re-examining these processes with the intelligent automation approach. And with that, it's a shared webinar as well, so we can make that available for anyone that wishes to have it. So looking at the needs, I guess, across the organization when it comes to automation, and we look at the citizen developer approach and the organic adoption of automation. And Power Automate absolutely has the capability and enablement in terms of enabling employees to get up to speed to build out citizen developer programs, that being a no-code application. So it's very, very easy to use for lower skilled workers to get building automations with the no-code. Also with the pre-built templates that come as part of Power Automate. So you can get automating straight away, straight out of the box. And likewise with the user community and content that's available out there for all employees and all workers to get up to speed with Power Automate very, very quickly. But likewise, on the other end, it comes with the more complex requirements needed for development teams, and likewise your governance, security, support needed for your IT and admin staff as well. And just look at the application lifecycle management piece. So if we think about it, we think about the lower skilled worker when it comes to automating with the Power Platform. It's built for everyone to be a developer. It doesn't place that burden or that emphasis or need on your software development team, but actually everybody can become a developer with a no code, low code application. But likewise, it has the pro developer code first piece as well. And we think about the Azure services built in. So the likes of your analysis services, your API management, Azure functions, and so on. And likewise with your Azure and Office data services as well, all built in. So it comes with both for your low code piece around your lower skilled everyday business user employee being able to work with the Power Platform from that element, but likewise in the back end, there's the code first element for your pro developer team in the back end for DevOps as well. And with that, just to look at the foundation piece. So Power Automate offers strict data loss prevention policies. So that's your DLP policies that can be customized at the user environment or the tenant level. And they can be classified as business data only or no business data allowed. Also, when it comes to reporting and analytics in the Power Platform Admin Center, again, the insights sit within a unified dashboard. So that's to say that the admin insights provide deep visibility into the usage and performance of applications, but you can also track the health and the implementation metrics to keep users on track as well and increase performance. And finally, you can personalize those insights with custom Power BI reports, but likewise, there's flexibility to have prepackaged content available as well to roll this out quicker and faster. And looking at logging with integrated being with Office 365 with security and compliance as well. So you can get visibility into how Power Automate is being used across an organization. So with that come the audits records that are stored in Office 365 Security and Compliance Center. But likewise, the Office 365 Management Activity API enables creation of custom monitoring solutions and integration with SIEM vendors. And finally, can automate actions and alerts by connecting Power Automate to audit events. So it gives good visibility right across the organization in terms of how Power Automate is being used and how it's scaling. And just touch on a couple of use cases before we can go into maybe a quick demo. So with TrueGreen, again, a good use case to highlight how Power Automate fed into the wider Power Platform. And with this case, this is a lawning service company, a large lawning service company in the US. And the challenge that they had is that a lot of requests were coming out of hours when staff weren't available. Obviously, being the nature of the business that they were in, a lot of people noticed issues with lawns in out of hours, whether that be weekend or whether that be after work or before work. And a lot of the traffic came in when the manpower wasn't there for TrueGreen. So they had this challenge that they needed to speed up their response times around customer service, and they needed to improve customer satisfaction from where it was. So with that, with a Power Platform piece of work, with Power Apps, we were able to build an application whereby customers, when they had a problem, could simply take a photo of the infected area on the lawn. That information was fed back to TrueGreen. And with Power Virtual Agents, they were able to build a chatbot, both to keep the customer satisfied in terms of when they could expect support, but also to alert staff internally and the greenkeeper internally of the issue. And in the back end of Power Automate, in terms of moving that data, also sat artificial intelligence and image detection and recognition. And with that, when the photo was taken, the image and the artificial intelligence could recognize the parasite and diagnose the problem. And that information was fed through to the greenkeeper, who knew exactly what the problem was and the diagnosis needed. And with that, TruGreen were able to massively speed up their response times, keep the customer informed in terms of the Power Virtual Agents element, that they were getting fast response times, and also speed up the process of getting the information through to the greenkeeper so that the problem could be resolved at a faster time. And with that, massively improved their customer satisfaction score. One more native to France is La Poste. And La Poste, being the French postal network, they came into major difficulty around about the start of the pandemic and start of COVID-19. And they had difficulty in keeping up with the numbers of complaints that were coming through around late orders and late deliveries. And with that, they launched SCORE, their Satisfaction Client Omnicanal Orienté Résultat. So a results-oriented client satisfaction ticketing system to improve the response around complaints. And that was backed and joined up together in the back end by Power Automate, which joined all the systems together so that employees could see the full picture of the client's history of complaints and more information on the client rather than having it on disparate systems. And with that, there was less burden on developers. In that Power Automate could be built out and scaled pretty fast as a no-code solution. And within a couple of months, literally within 7-8 weeks, there was a 70% reduction in the backlog once Power Automate was built out. So an interesting use case in terms of a fast response to COVID, and again, an advantage of how quick and easy it is to build automations with no-code technology. And finally, another use case just to show from Asia, of one of the largest insurance companies in Asia that runs across multiple channels. And with that, a company that sat on a lot of old legacy systems. And they had a cultural challenge when they first came about implementing automation, in that employees feared that what would automation mean for them. But they took a citizen developer approach where their old UI platform as a service required high IT literacy skills. But with the no code and the citizen developer approach, this company trained and certified more than 130 citizen developers straight away with Power Automate. And with that, they're able to build out their e-learning portal with the support of Power Automate. And as it stands, they're set to reduce training costs by $1.4 million in the year ahead. So again, a really interesting story in terms of their approach, seeing it as a no-code, easy to use tool with the user community and support available to get started. And just to touch on the user community piece before we jump into a quick demo. So with that, and again on the deck here, so we have some content in terms of resources that are available to help you get started. So there's a huge range of guided education paths online. So firstly, we see with Microsoft Learn that there's several interactive learning exercises and video content on Power Automate to help you to get up to speed and to build processes from 0 to 60 in terms of getting started and getting used to the tool and seeing how it works. Likewise, with Microsoft Docs and visiting docs.com, there's overviews, tutorials, code samples, and lots more. And finally, certifications as well. So you can validate your technical knowledge around Power Automate with Microsoft certification as well. And again, just worth highlighting in terms of how easy it is to use, that there have been plenty of cases, and Heathrow Airport being one, where employees have taken this into their own hands. They have got up to speed with Power Automate, how it works as a no-code tool, and they've solved business challenges that they and their team have faced on a day-to-day basis with the help of this automation technology. And with that, have changed career paths. So again, the Heathrow Airport use case is available fully online, where we've had cases where by getting up to speed with Power Automate, we've been able to learn how the technology works and how we can solve challenges and on a day-to-day basis that affect us, and therefore change careers in some cases as well. So with that, I think we've about 8 minutes left, so I'm going to do a very, very quick demo. So I'm just going to switch screen here. Bear with me a moment. So what we want to do is to load up a quick demo where we want to do a screen scrape action. So with that, I'm going into my Office 365 environment. Within that sits Power Automate. So by clicking on Power Automate here, what this will bring me to is my home page essentially. And with that, down the left-hand side, we can see some of the elements that we talked about. So by firstly clicking into connectors here, and we talked about the 450 connectors that come as part of Power Automate. So with that, when I click into it, I see these 450 connectors, and this is broken down by popular connectors and recently added connectors. So for instance, if I wanted to search for a connector here, such as Salesforce, which you mentioned earlier, again, I can just run a type on Salesforce and see if it's there. And with that should come Salesforce. So within that, if I click into Salesforce, we talked also about the pre-built templates. So the pre-built templates come as part of Power Automate as well, and that just enables us to get started and get underway much quicker and much faster with Power Automate. So here I see some of the pre-built templates within the user community, which are popular and which are used on an everyday basis. So we see this process here of receiving a weekly email summary of new opportunities in Salesforce. That's a pre-built template, and if I click into that, that will start to map out the process for me and make it quite an easy build. Likewise with that, I'm going to go in to have a look at the templates itself. So by clicking into the templates screen here, I can actually browse on the templates, and I can see here the different tabs around some of the more common requests that we see. Likewise, I can run a search on templates, and again, these are sorted how I want them, whether they want to be sorted by popularity, by name, or by publish time. Also going to click into the AI Builder next. And we talked about the 5 different elements of AI Builder that come as part of AI Builder. So with that, when we see this mapped out, we see that it maps out these 5 different elements. And when I go into it, it'll give me some information in terms of how to get started, which is quite intuitive. So it gives me some practices around do's and don'ts, and gives some examples in terms of how to get started as well. So just while that loads, I can expect to see my 5 different elements of AI Builder popping up. Just while that's loading, down here on the left also we can see Process Advisor, which is in preview mode. So by clicking into Process Advisor, I can get started and start to map out those processes that I believe are fit for automation. And with that will come the process mapping and the analytics tool, whether that be custom-made analytics or pre-packaged analytics. That all comes included as part of Process Advisor. And just while this is loaded up here on the AI Builder piece, so I see this broken across category classification, entity extraction, form processing, object detection, and prediction. So if I click into prediction as an example, again, it gives me my practices in terms of getting started, examples, that I can work with sample data, get creating and building straight away. And likewise, best practices, so some do's and don'ts in terms of getting started and underway. So with the few minutes left that we've got, I just want to do a very, very quick process where I want to take a website. So I've created a list website here. And what I want to do is I want to refine this list firstly on the web itself. So with that, I'm going to refine the data I want to work with and break that down into the records I need. I want it then to go into those records and scrape that information from those records, take that out, and then dump that onto an Excel file. So with that, I'm going to create and get started. By clicking on create, I can see the different options that come up, and likewise, I can start with a template. But in this case, I want to run an attended desktop flow, which will process on my PAD desktop. So I'm going to launch that application, the PAD desktop app. I'm just going to launch that again. So with that, I see PAD desktop is open down here. So with that, I want to create a new flow. I'm going to call it Test France and create. So when I've created that, it is bringing me into my process designer page. And as it gets things ready, so with this, we can expect that it'll be a no-code tool, very, very easy to use by drag and drop functionality. Down the left-hand side of the page here, I can expect my list of actions, which are here. So again, all different flexibility in terms of how I want to build out that process, whether it be by variables, whether it be by conditional. So if such and such a file exists, please do this, or if such an image exists, or if a window exists, please act this way. Likewise with loops, that it can run through multiple websites back and forth. But for this process, what I want to do is I want to work at a web recorder, and the web recorder records my mouse actions and keystrokes. So when I click on web recorder, I'm going to work with Microsoft Edge, and I'm going to go to advanced to pick that tab that we talked about, the web extraction example page, and I'm going to click next to launch that. So with that, my web recorder window pops up and I want to start recording. So I'm going to minimize that, and I can see the red box that pops up, and that essentially is highlighting the data that I want to work with. So I want to zone in on city, and I want to fill in city, New York, for the case of this exercise. And I want to select the state of New York from the drop-down menu as well. So again, I'm going to FIR. So city New York, state New York, and I want to click submit with that to refine that list. So we can see here that it's refined the list, and I've got some records to work with. So I want to go into the record itself. So I want to click into view details and get into that new page. And so with the red box here, I see that it's highlighting multiple info. For the sake of this, I want to just take the name. I want to take the surname. And I want to take the address. So all I'm doing there is right-clicking on the relevant box, which highlights the info I need, and I'm clicking on extract element data. I'm going to go into a second record again to do something similar. So again, I'm going to take the name, I'm going to take surname, and I'm going to take address from two records. Okay, and I'm going to go back out. And with that, with my web recorder, it's captured that information. So it's captured all that data. So essentially what I've asked it to do is to launch the web browser, click into the element in the web page, input the information of New York and select New York from the drop down, and refine those records. and then I've asked it to click into 2 different records and extract that data. So it's taking that data and I'm going to click finish. So that data will be stored for me. So I want to go back out to the process designer, and I can see automatically that that info has populated in the process designer. Next step for me now is I want to work with that data, but firstly I want to open my Excel. So I see Excel is here, but for handiness sake, because there are so many actions, maybe if I type in Excel in the top left here, again, it will give me the list of options that come with Excel. So we can see multiple options regarding Excel. So my first step is to launch it. And again, I can specify the information that I wanted to work with. I'm happy for it to launch with a new blank document rather than an existing document. And in terms of the advanced loading add-ins and macros, I'm happy not to. And likewise, with the variables produced, I'm happy for it to launch an Excel instance. So I want to save that. And then the next element is to write to an Excel worksheet. So with that, I want to write the values of the output data that we've captured. And I wanted to write on the specified cell or the currently active cell. Rather than specify the cell, I'm just going to go with currently active cell. So I'm happy for it to write an Excel cell A1 at the top left, and I saved that. So just to quickly recap, just while we're coming up in time, what I wanted to do is launch an Excel. I have filtered the information that I wanted to work with, New York, typed it in. I've also selected New York from the drop-down, and I've submitted that. And I've gone into the first record, and I have extracted that data from first record. I've gone back out to a second record to take that data and gone back out. With that data, I have dumped it into my process designer here. Then with drag and drop, no code, I have launched Excel and ask it to write to an Excel worksheet. So I'm going to run that process. And we can see here that it's running 14 seconds, carrying out the information in the back end. And any second now, I can expect to see an Excel open up with the data. So it's giving me the time that it's 30 seconds running. And it's working through it step by step. So I'm going to close out of this. I expect to see an Excel open up here, which it has done, and it's dumped the information into Excel cell A1 for me as requested. So simple as that. So just to recap in terms of Power Automate Desktop, just for our last minute, very, very easy to use, drag and drop. Again, I can save that flow, but I'm happy not to for this case. And again, it'll just bring me back out to my designer to get another process up and running. So it just goes to show how simple it is to build processes, to get started and to work away in terms of drag and drop, no code, and very, very easy to use technology. And with that, as we touched on, the pre-built templates come on board. The support content is there, both in MS Learn and MS Doc, and that content is fully available and fully free for everyone to use. And also the Microsoft certifications are there as well for people to get up to speed with Power Automate. So with that, I think we're right up on time, but I'll open it up to any questions if there are any questions.
There was some questions. Thank you, Catal, for the great session. There was some question, but Kevin answered them. And I think it's just on time to start the following slot of session. So Thank you very much. And feel free for the people following the keynote to go to the other session.
Super. And we've Chris on tomorrow as well to go into more detail from the technical side as well. So just reminding people as well that Chris's session is on tomorrow.
Yeah.
Chris Flacos. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks, guys. Take care.